Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Hope everybody's off to a great start of the week. I am looking forward to the topic today for our, you know, time we get to spend here this morning. But first, good news. Now, notice today's piece of art. It's a piece by John Burroughs. It's called Burr Trail, and it depicts a trail in Sedona. And John Burrow is a prolific and popular artist of the Southwest Desert. He also does a bunch of other art. We have quite a few pieces, but I'm sharing it. And it's not so important, but I want to remind you this whole art of the day came from people giving me feedback that they didn't like the angry owl that used to sit over my shoulder. And that in fact the camera would focus on the owl and not me. I'd be blurry and the owl would be really clear and crisp. But I told you we had a piece of art for an owl because it depicts the owls that come visit us. They usually get here about the last month of summer, and they stay until the Christmas lights go on, or until the first, until November. All right. Here's the good news: the owls are back. The owls got back last night. Matter of fact, I posted a little video of one of the owls on a telephone pole on my Instagram. So the owls are back. I almost put the angry owl up just in celebration of the owls coming back. It's such a happy time, a change of season. It means we're getting near the end of summer. And it feels that way here because it was only like 104 yesterday here in Scottsdale, although it'll be 109 today. Now, all that, sorry if you're joining me going, what the heck am I talking about? How does this have to do with playing a different game? Well, it doesn't, but I'm going to transition now. I love when I get exposed to somebody that's does the same thing that I'm doing, but doing it totally different, completely different. And it's very like when pro golfers used to be asked about Tiger Woods when he first got into golf, and I don't remember who it was. Might have been Jack Nicklaus that said he plays a game I'm unfamiliar with, and that he does it so differently. I'm unfamiliar with that game. I'm like, I'm in awe of how they do this game. And when I'm out there, I get to meet a ton of people, and I get exposed to a lot of people, and I go to a ton of conferences, and occasionally I come across people that just play a different game, and I'm always inspired. And I'm going to highlight someone specific today, but I mean, we see it all the time. We get exposed to it all the time. Whenever I hear or talk to Sean Benosian, that guy's playing a different game. He's just playing a totally different level. And I recently watched Mortgage Coach podcast. Dave Savage interviewed Ken DeLeon, and Ken is the number one buyer's agent in America. He's already closed $1 billion in production this year, which is a lot, right? And I know it's a good podcast when I'm compelled to watch it 2, 3, 4 times. And when I start getting to a podcast, or I watch it, or a webinar, and I watch it 2 or 3, 4 times, then I'm compelled to share it. Typically, I don't talk about podcasts on my live because I prefer you go watch the podcast. Like, I don't want to talk about, a 40-minute podcast or 15 minutes, just go watch 40 minutes. So today, I'm not only going to talk about the podcast with Ken, but I'm just going to talk about people playing a different game. And the hope is, I hope all of us think, how can we play a different game? And you don't need to be ginormous. You don't need to be the billion-dollar agent to approach things differently. You could be a loan officer in your first day, or a real estate agent in your first month, and think how you're going to do things differently. Like, things you should ask yourself, what can I do different? And that is, what's your differentiator, right? And this is the most important, what's the most important problem I can solve for my targeted client? Just, if that's all you do, right? How do I solve problems? And the bigger problem you solve, the more you get paid. Simple as that. So find big problems and solve them, and then go find the customers you can help. And so, how are you compelling? How are you being in the marketplace? Why is that compelling? Who do you serve? And I happen to think, if you don't have a compelling reason to exist in the marketplace, you probably should exit the market, right? If I was a loan officer and I were to disappear today and it made no difference, then I probably need to leave the market. But if I was a loan officer and I had such a compelling value proposition, I had such a unique service, and people sought me out, and people just would miss if I left the business and grieve that they couldn't use me, then I've done it right. And you don't need to do $1 billion to do that. You don't need to do a gazillion. All you need to do is start today on figuring out what you solve. Is it a big enough problem? Are you compelling? Serve your people, right? So that's all. That's all I have to do. So I'm going to use this podcast with Dave's podcast with Ken as an example of somebody playing a totally different game. But what I don't want to get lost. I don't want us to go, gosh, yeah, but they do $1 billion, so they can have all these other resources. I don't care if you aren't even doing a loan, you can do something special, right? Which is what's really important here. Okay, so let's talk about the podcast. Dave titled this "Embracing the NAR Settlement with Ken DeLeon, America's #1 buyer's agent." But truthfully, there was some, but there was very little about the podcast. Like about the NAR settlement. I didn't watch it 3 times because Ken has great insights into the NAR settlement. I watched it 3 times because I was just absolutely in awe of how he's gone about built his business. So to start with, Ken was an attorney. Right, he was an attorney that started to do a little personal real estate and said, "Oh my gosh, I can be so much more. I can be so much more valuable in real estate other than being an attorney." Right, and so he was compelled to get into the business, and he works in Silicon Valley now. I mean, honestly, I don't know. He didn't say his average sales $10 million. Right? And if your average sale is $10 million, $1 billion doesn't seem as impressive as if you're doing $1 billion and your average sale was 100,000. But $1 billion, and 1 billion divided by 10 million is still a lot. And the thing that's interesting is then his market is, how do I serve that $10 million client? And I don't know what the most expensive house he sold. I'm sure it's over $50 million. He routinely sells houses for $20, $30 million, and he sells houses for $4 million. Now, a $4 million house in his market is a teardown, right? And his client are super bright tech people, and tech people, bright tech people kind of seem like they want to act like they know it all, but they probably need the most help. They're running 1 million miles a minute. And so it's very interesting to listen to how Ken built the successful platform and what he offers. Right? And so here's the first thing he did. He hired a data scientist to create proprietary data that would give them with really good confidence exactly what homes are worth in his marketplace and how much they would appreciate. And so he could tell his clients which house was a good deal, which house was a bad deal. He could tell them how their wealth would grow over time with a lot of scientific certainty based by data. And so that's what he started. The first thing he did is he hired a data scientist and created proprietary data because he knew that his targeted client needs data, needs confidence. So, all right, that's doing it differently, right? Creating your own data scientist, creating your own data sets, starting to create models that your customers can use. That makes you a difference. And so he would say, his ability to predict which markets will see the greatest amount of appreciation, analyze the market at a deeper level through proprietary data, helps separate him from his competition. Okay, well, one, you're an attorney, that separates you. Now you got your own data set, right? And then he went on and he created the DeLeon VIP Club. And I'm gonna just summarize this. And here's what he did. The DeLeon VIP Club is his 30-year plan on how to serve the client. That's what it is. And somewhere in the interview with Dave, he said, "Look, I don't charge people for the transaction. I charge people for the 30-year relationship." Like, isn't that great? Like, do you have a 30-year plan? A real 30-year plan? Like, here's how I'm going to walk beside you for 30 years. Here's how I'm going to help you for 30 years. Here's my commitment. I already have this roadmap, not by chance, but by design, right? It's pretty cool. And so in his DeLeon VIP Club, which is for his past clients, he wants to be able to provide an answer to any question you have about residential real estate or serve any need you have about residential real estate. And by the way, he throws a ton into it. And you'll start to see what I mean when I talk about the DeLeon experience. So when you use Ken and you get his DeLeon experience, right? here's some of the things that he offers in his DeLeon experience, right? And what he did is he built a team around the client to be able to help them with any real estate questions or problems they had. So I mentioned a lot of his clients, super rich, you know, I'm saying this on him, probably pretty self-confident or arrogant, but probably aren't really educated or experienced in the things they need, which they buy these multi-million dollar houses that need to be dramatically remodeled or redesigned or upgraded to fit in with the Joneses, right? And they don't know how to do all that stuff. Because remember, they're moving into markets where the average houses are like 50, 60, 70 million. So if you buy a $10 million house, you know, you have house envy, you want to improve it. So here's what he did. One, he has on his staff a vice president of development. Now, this person has a master's from Stanford in construction management. He has a history. He owned a company that built $30 million custom homes, right? Ken's vice president of development helps Ken's clients, analyze potential projects and remodels to see if it's a good investment and to see if it's feasible, right? So I hired Ken to represent me as a buyer. I go, Ken, I think I want to buy that house, but it needs to be updated, it needs to be remodeled. Ken hooks him up with his vice president of development, who does a feasibility study, coaches him on how much it's going to cost, is a good idea, and how much that will affect the financial roadmap down the road, right? And then in addition to having a vice president of development, he has attorneys on staff to help his clients with whatever legal questions they have, and with anything doing with personally, you know, around the home or residential real estate. He, of course, has interior designers. He has a network of the top contractors. He has, by the way, he has architects on staff. So he's trying to get this. Okay, I have a feasibility manager. I have architects. I have attorneys. I actually have some contractors as well as an extensive network of contractors. I pay for all my own staging. I have the best staging in the business. And as you listen to this podcast, it goes on and on and on. And remember, the problem is my clients have never done this. They're buying homes that need to be upgraded. They don't know how to do it. So I'm going to solve that by providing all of that. I'm going to provide all that advice and consultation for free. For free. All this is free. Now, not the construction work, all that stuff, but all the advisors on Ken's team are free for using them. And that's the DeLeon experience. And then he extends that to the VIP club. If you ever need anything around the home, residential real estate, me and my team can help you. Come to us, right? And so he says, if you look at who your clients are, what their problems are, and try to solve them, they're going to love you. And Ken's clients love him. Now he's a very seems to be affable, nice dude. You know, I mean, he seems really appealing type of guy, but he also uploads unbelievable value, right? And so he uses data to help his clients make confident choices and optimize their financial opportunities. And then he provides professional in-house services to help his clients solve their biggest problems around real estate. And then in the end, he delivers them their dreams. And by the way, he charges full price as a buyer's agent. He charges slightly less as a listing agent, but full price as a buyer's agent. And you can do the math, 3% times $10 million. It's a little bit of money, right? And when he talks about the NAR settlement, he thinks, gosh, for so long, so many buyer's agents have been overpaid. He goes, but the best ones have been underpaid. And and he says, as I approached the NAR settlement, and not as the NAR settlement, because I'm an attorney. I predicted that how the settlement was going to go years ago, so I already started building my value prop to make sure I was immune to the settlement. But his philosophy is, look, I'm not going to cut my fees. I'm just going to continue to increase my value, and we love that, right? We love that. That is Alex Herzani, whatever. That's his thing. Don't ever cut your fees because that's a vicious, downward cycle. Just improve your value. Like, I love that. And then he gets into some strategies and uses some personal testimony. He goes, one of the ways I'm compelling to my clients to talk about my own journey. And I said, I talked to him about how I can help them create wealth through real estate. He goes, I bought 4 homes or 7 homes. I think it was, 4 homes in my first 10 years in the business. And I'd buy them and I'd remodel them, and then I'd either rent them for a couple of years or sell them. Now, I'd only buy the homes my clients turn down. So like if I brought my client an opportunity and they didn't want it, well, if I bring them an opportunity, it's something that I would do myself. And so they didn't take it, I took it. And so I go, did 4 houses in a row, and over 10 years, I took my $350,000 investment and made $7 million net. He goes, that's what I try to teach my clients how to do. I try to teach them well through real estate. And I use me as an example. This is what I do. He goes, buy a fixer-upper every 2 years. That's what you should do. And then either rent or sell it. Use your 2-year capital gains exemption every 2 years. It's the biggest gift you can have. It's $500,000 of untaxed gains. Do that every 2 years, because people don't start early enough, and then they don't transact enough. And you need to start early, because when you don't have kids, you can increase the velocity of how quickly you buy and sell homes. Once you have kids and you're living in those homes, you have to live in them to get the 2-year exemption, right? You got to live 2 out of the 5 years. He goes, then it's harder to move kids in and move kids out. So start early when you have easier velocity, but build up that nest egg. That's great. And so he talks about that strategy, which is really good. And now he's talking about, right now he's launching a website called Real Estate Professor, realestateprofessor.com. It's not launched yet. It's going to have articles, videos, analysis. It's just where he's going to give the world all his knowledge, gives it for free, all his education and knowledge. And interesting, now think about this. So this guy's an attorney. He's the number one sales real estate agent in the United States. He's like number 3 overall agent. He's making tons of bank. He has lots of real estate investments. I'm sure he has lots of companies. Super sharp dude, right? So what does he do? He goes, hey, I need to sharpen the saw. I don't know if I'm strong enough, advisor to my clients. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go get an MBA at MBA at Stanford in my spare time. So he just got his MBA from Stanford so that he could be a stronger financial advisor to his clients. Are we doing that? Are we doing that? Right? I'm leveling up. I'm number 1, but I'm gonna level up. That's stuff that Sean does. Sean's leveling up all the time. I'm impressed. And by the way, many of you are. You do not have to be number 1 to be leveling up. I get so impressed with the people I get to meet all the time. Last week I met a bunch of people. A couple of people started up companies, and their vision was great. Man, they're I don't know if it's going to work or not, but they're trying, and they're leveling up, and they're getting coaching, they're seeking wisdom, and they're getting advice, and they're trying to build something novel and something new, and they're trying to solve problems. That's why I really enjoyed this podcast. So I put a link to the podcast in my show notes. I will also put I'll repost it on LinkedIn today. Check it out. It's great. And then just think, how can you do it differently? How can you do it better? Whether you're doing no deals or a gazillion deals, what niche do you fit in the marketplace? What solutions are you solving? Ken was this awesome. I hope he inspires all of us to be a little better. Dave Savage, you're slaying it with the last few months, man. You're not that you don't always slay it, but you've been just slaying it with content. Keep it up. With that, I don't know what the pitch will be tomorrow. I promise not to bring the angry owls, but the owls are back. It's a good season. Have a great day. Thanks.